Hello everyone, welcome back to the Hindu Explainer series. I am Sagar Joshi and very warm greetings from Law Prep Tutorial. And thank you so much for all the wishes that you put in the comment section. As you all know that I go through all the comments personally every day. And before recording the video, that is the last thing I also see. So thank you once again. In that regard, it is paramount that all of you should get yourself vaccinated immediately. And from my personal experience, I'm saying it is going to take a couple of days to recover. You may get side effects from the vaccine shot. I have certain symptoms from side effects from the vaccine shot even now. So you may feel a little weak and fever. So all of that will be there, but don't worry, that should not be a problem vis-a-vis not getting. That is not an excuse to not get vaccinated. All right, so make sure that you do that at the earliest if you haven't got your shot yet. So yesterday, one doubt that we had was, what is a landfall? The landfall is related to tropical cyclones. The place where the cyclone hits the land first, that place is known as landfall. All right, so that is one doubt that was there. A lot of you also had doubts about the Russia-Ukraine dispute. So it is very simple. In 2014, Russia annexed one part which is known as Crimea from Ukraine. Simple. It is similar to, for example, let's say two friends go to school. One of them has a tiffin box or a notebook, and you take away that part of the notebook, or you take that notebook away from his bag or something. So it is similar to that. A permanent territory of Ukraine, that was Crimea, was taken away or annexed, as the international term is used, by Russia through military force. Since then, there have been tensions between the two countries. So the root cause of that is the Crimean Peninsula, the picture and the map that we discussed yesterday. So make sure that you have done that. All right. This is the crux of the dispute at hand. Okay. Then moving on, another doubt that a lot of you have been asking is, sir, मैं CLAT तो 2022 में दे रहा हूँ, अभी मेरे एग्जाम में एक साल का गैप है, एक साल से शायद ज़्यादा भी हो सकता है, क्या पता एग्जाम कब हो, तो मैं जीके अभी पढूं या नहीं पढूं? माई सजेशन टू यू इज, अगर तुमने डिसाइड किया है कि तुम्हें ये काम आगे करना है तो उसके लिए प्रयास अभी से करो. You should start getting that thing done now itself. Why wait later on? The fact that you have decided to do something earlier, you will not be able to maximize your mover's advantage. What is a mover? First mover's advantage. That you started off in the race earlier than the other competitors. So when you know that you are starting out earlier, the maximum benefit of this is only when you start preparing earlier. So therefore, see, current affairs is not always just about things that are asked in the examination immediately. There are certain things that you will have to study no matter what, even if it's 2 to 3 months down the line, or it is something that is going to not go waste nevertheless. See, if we discuss an important Supreme Court judgment, let's say CLAT पे नहीं आता है, but mark my words, all of this will come to you in law schools. So अगर तुमने कोई चीज अभी पढ़ ली है तो it is not going to go waste. Don't worry about कि मेरा time waste हो जाएगा, ऐसा बिल्कुल नहीं होगा. All right, and only when you get into the habit of doing things now, you will perfect it by the time you approach the exam. Okay, so don't skip preparation now in the hope that I will do it later on. On that note, let's begin with today's newspaper analysis. So on the front page, one barge which is P0305 sank 35 nautical miles off the Mumbai coast during the cyclone Taute. So in this regard, rescue operations are going on and 49 people are still missing. So we hope that they are found at the earliest. The Prime Minister has also announced a ex gratia payment of 2 lakh rupees to all the kin of those who have been killed due to the cyclone. So this is part of the relief measures that the government has announced for those who have suffered during the cyclone. And there is another cyclone that could approach the Bay of Bengal, as the surface temperature of oceans heats up, we may start getting these tropical cyclones far more frequently. So that could be a event that more and more will happen as times progress in future if we don't do anything about climate change in general. This once again puts how climate change in itself is such an important event. So even if we are discussing it is related to a tropical cyclone now, it is all linked back to climate change. So therefore climate change as a theme, as a topic, is something that needs to be discussed, needs to be learned by you all at all costs. That is one topic that you cannot miss, one topic that will come in the examination for sure. On that note, so on the front page, apart from this, one important news that is there for us is that the central government has asked WhatsApp to revoke or scrap its new privacy policy, recognizing that so many users are dependent on WhatsApp and it is not possible for them to move away. The government and the Ministry of Electronics and IT have asked or else have served a notice to WhatsApp to scrap it. That see, this is not something that you do internationally. So therefore, why are you treating Indian users differently? WhatsApp has defended its privacy policy on the grounds that government apps such as Arogya Setu, IRCTC also have similar privacy policy measures. However, that is something for the coach to decide. Now we need to wait for WhatsApp's decision. One thing that the central government has not done, which it could do, something that European countries have done, is have a privacy law in place. Something that has been asked by the government to do. The bill has been pending for almost 3 years now. Something that the government has dragged its feet over. Had that been in place, this situation wouldn't have arisen at all. So this places once again in the main narrative of what is privacy, online privacy, and how this is related to right to life of all of us. Article 21, right to life. Then moving on, apart from this, on the national news, nothing of real note for us from CLAT perspective. So we move on to the editorial section. On the editorial section, there is one editorial that we are going to discuss at a little bit of depth. This is related to what interpretations which impede a just social order. So I'll come to this, but before that we'll discuss the other ones. So on the left hand side, flashing lights. As inflation threatens economy's consumptive capacity, cash transfers can boost demand. So you all know inflation has a direct thing on the amount of money that you have. What does this mean? When the cost of commodities rises, the savings or the income that you have reduces, or your consumption overall becomes expensive. You have to expend with far more income. Now already people who have suffered during COVID-19 time period, let's say a lot of people have not succumbed to the disease, but their family members were sick. So a lot of expenditure has already been incurred and people have low savings. So when there are low savings and inflation rises, as you can see, the fuel prices have been rising consistently over the past 2 weeks, living cost will become even more expensive. Because of lockdowns, we are already losing jobs. Unemployment is at the highest it has ever been in India. And at the same time, we are also now facing another problem, which is that the demand in the economy for new goods will reduce. So what is the one way for economy to bounce back? It is that it starts producing more, it starts growing. But how can economies grow when people don't have demand, when people don't have money to buy? Therefore, the editorial calls that cash transfer, something that all Western countries have done to tide over the sluggishness that COVID-19 has brought into their economies. Direct cash transfers to those who have been affected is being touted as one solution to solve this problem of demand in the economy, that it can kickstart the economy at the onset. So that is something that the government needs to see. Then on the second one, fresh start, the left must guard against concentration of power in the hands of the Chief Minister Pinarayi Vijayan. So In Kerala, the government has returned for the first time in 30 years. Until now, the governments have there been rotating from one party to the other after every election. But for the first time in 30 years, that has not happened. However, the CPI or the Communist Party or the left front in Kerala is under attack in the sense that all the ministers of the cabinet who did a good job, which people reposed faith once again, have been discarded for new people. Almost all of them first time MLAs. So which would put or concentrate power in the hands of the chief minister, something that democracy or parliamentary system or council of ministers as an executive body in our constitution is not meant to be. So that is something the editorial calls that this should not happen, and overall power should be distributed equitably. So that is something that needs to be seen for political analysis. However, for us this is more important. Alright, and this is one classic case of why, for viewers who are preparing for an examination that is not immediately there, but eventually they will. So this editorial is for those kinds of scenarios. What this is about is a constitutional interpretation. So what this is related to is the Maratha judgment, which the Supreme Court came out recently. What did the court decide in the constitutional bench judgment? That first, Maratha community is not socially and educationally backward. Alright, so they should not get reservation. Okay, the second part was that, see, you cannot breach 50% reservation target unless there are exceptional circumstances. And third, that only the central government has the power to actually determine whether a community is backward or not, and that only the president can confirm this. So three things have come out. This editorial talks about the third part and how that affects the federal structure of the state. That, see, in a federal structure, states and center have specific powers and one does not impede on the power of another. By this judgment, this power of states is now being taken away. That who they want to determine as socially backward, that power has been taken away. This is what is being discussed in this paragraph. Alright. However, the author of the editorial goes on to say that, see, this is not something that was originally envisioned in the constitution. Okay. And there are two other things that the constitution makers also did not envision, which is they envisioned reservation to be not permanent. However, and they did not place any upper limit on what should be the extent of reservation in general. So here it is calling in a contrast to the approach of Supreme Court over judgments. This is a rather very complex constitutional editorial. Alright, so even if you don't get it, you don't have to worry. The crux of this for you all at this point of time is that, see, based on the Indira Sahani judgment, in 1992, the court in a 9-bench stated that 50% is the threshold. Beyond that, there has to be exceptional circumstances. The court in the recent judgment has held this 50% threshold as a part of now the basic structure of the constitution. Second thing, it has also confirmed that yes, reservation is a mechanism for social justice. Both these two things, that is social justice through reservation and 50% threshold, were not something that were originally envisioned by the constitutional makers. But in contrast, what they had actually envisioned in the constitution originally was states and center will have specific powers and central government cannot impede upon them. How is this the case? That, see, the central list under Article 342A was always meant to be exercised by both organs of the government, that is the state and the center. But this judgment has actually made this power, which was originally envisioned in the constitution by the constitution makers, that has been done away with, and two other things that were not originally there in the constitution or were not originally envisioned as the basic constituent of the constitution, they have been given the standard of basic structure. However, something that was originally there has been taken away. Now, so this is what the three parts that the judgment has discussed is being highlighted. This is all based on interpretation. The union government has filed a review petition calling that, see, giving exclusive power to the center is not something that should be done, and they have called for a review. Otherwise, the union government is also exploring the option of amending the constitution. So for us, what becomes important is the three standards, the three final judgments, that to determine whether a community is actually backward or not, only the president through the central government and the parliament can decide so. Second, 50% is the threshold for reservation. Beyond this, you need to have exceptional circumstances. And third, that reservation is a mechanism to social justice. Okay, and that it is not something of an exception to right to equality, but is actually a mechanism to aid right to equality. Then moving on, the second editorial here, a collage of laws that leaves the worker out in the cold. The law that is being called in question here is the Social Security Code that the central government brought it in 2020. So this code basically merges all the other social security benefit. For us, what is important to be understood is what is social security. Social securities is like a safety net, that in case nothing works out, you have certain benefits as a catch, that let's say while you fall, if you fall, there is a net that can protect you, and then there are other benefits that come to you when you work, right? Maternity benefit, then basic income, then paid leaves, equal pay for equal work. So those kinds of social security benefits should be there. However, migrant workers, this is something the last year's lockdown, that 2020 lockdown has confirmed, that in the policy narrative and the laws, the migrant workers are the least looked after community. And this is what the editorial is also calling, that informal workers are being least looked after by the laws. Then on the left hand side on the OPAD page, the basics of an effective vaccine policy, that we need to prioritize groups, we need to have better demand in general and have access to all. What is this about? Access through the CoWIN portal. So the government recognized that CoWIN portal should be in multiple languages. There should be alternative mechanisms to get yourself vaccinated, that only digital registration cannot be the way ahead for people who are poor, for people who don't have access to internet. So in that regard, this is what this is about. Then on the right hand side, a thaw in Pakistan-India trade relations, that despite high import duty being imposed, the trade between India and Pakistan stood at $278 million. So this is all despite when political relations between the two countries are at the lowest. This is something that can be explored to look after people at the now. Then moving on, the second one, overstepping the norm. Now what this is about is related to something we discussed yesterday also, that the Home Ministry has given central police force protection to 77 MLAs of its own political party. So in the center there is BJP, and to the MLAs of its own party it has extended police protection from central forces. That this is something that never is done, and that central forces are only used when there is a higher risk attached or when police force cannot do it. So one, this is something to say that, oh, the government there is not going to look after people equally. The second part of this also raises the question that why should central forces be used to provide security at large when, and if it is the case, this should be at the cost, that people should pay for it, and that these security force or security covered by central government is becoming like a status symbol. ideally, in a democracy that is now approaching 75 years old, it should be the case that everyone feels secure enough, rather than feeling that those who are supposed to govern on behalf of the people get extra protection from whom? The people themselves. So we should ideally strive for a society that is or has security at large, that no one should require this extra security. For example, if you look at other Western countries, their leaders or political executives can move around in the city like normal people. There is no extra security cover, elaborate security arrangements that are made, no roads are blocked. So all that is what we should strive for, and in case until we reach that, the people who want this security should actually pay for it, just like private individuals do. Then moving on the other national leaves. So FCRA amendments were brought in last year. Under this, one of it was that every NGO that is operating in India and receives funds from international bodies or gets aid or donation from international sources has to have a SBI account in Delhi. This limitation now has been extended. NGOs have been claiming that this is something that restrains their work. This is something that is inhibiting the aid that they are able to provide. So it needs to be seen what is done further on. Then moving on, two important news that needs to be discussed. First, the government of India has floated a tender to start its own international channel, that is DD International. The claim is that it should be on the lines of BBC. However, Doordarshan and BBC are completely different. In India, you can never see Doordarshan run a story that criticizes any policy of the government. However, BBC runs stories that criticize the government, criticize the Queen there, or the policies of the royal family, or any decision. So it's far more impartial than our Doordarshan can ever be, and no political party ever uses this as the mouthpiece or a platform to advertise what they are doing. However, the government has decided that they will explore option of a DD International. This will be an international channel that will reflect India's perspective globally to other countries, that what India or Indian side of story. Recently, a lot of criticism has come to Indian government internationally and domestically for its handling of COVID-19. So it is being seen that in this backdrop, government is trying to up the ante by launching its own channel. So if one question can be asked, what is the new international channel that the government of India has launched? It is the DD International channel. On the other side, UNESCO has tentatively added 6 heritage sites for India. They await confirmation. However, the name of all 6 becomes important. So which are these? First, the Ganga Ghats in Varanasi. The second, temples of Kanchipuram, and third, Satpura Tiger Reserve in Madhya Pradesh. These also are joined by the other 3. The higher Bengal megalithic site in Karnataka, the Bhedaghat Lama Ghat of Narmada Valley in Madhya Pradesh, along with the Maratha military architecture in Maharashtra. So 6 of them included as per UNESCO heritage sites for India. Now this is something, each year a lot of sites across the globe are identified to be part of the UNESCO World Heritage Protectorate. In this regard, these sites gain extra protection, they get extra resources for their maintenance, and they are seen as sites of international importance for cultural diversity. So therefore, the names of all 6 of them need to be noted down. Then moving on the international news. So on the international front, the fight in Israel-Palestine is still going on. The ceasefire is still not in light. It is being seen something that significant de-escalation should happen, but it is not happening until now. Then on the right hand side, that US to work with COVAX to allocate 80 million doses. That US is working more and more towards actually providing vaccines under the COVAX initiative. India has also provided vaccines under the COVAX initiative. India is also the country that has received the highest number of vaccines under the COVAX initiative. So the COVAX initiative, which is the COVID-19 vaccine for global access, it is for equitable access to vaccines to poor countries, that only the rich should not be able to get access to them. So under this, it is being seen something that can be done. However, until it is actually done, all of these are plans. Then on the left hand side, Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin hailed the conversation or the relationship that China and Russia are moving ahead. In this regard, what is the news related to us? The importance is related to the two nuclear power plants that are, or power projects that are working. First is Taiwan and the second is Zhudabao power plant. So these are two nuclear energy power plants that under which cooperation is going on between Russia and China. This is being claimed that now their relationship is the closest that it has ever been historically. Historically, Russia has always played an upper hand, but now the tides have reversed between China and Russia. So the name of these two plants and the cooperation between them becomes important. Then on the right hand side, Nord Stream 2. This is a gas pipeline from Russia to European countries. As you know, the tensions between Russia and United States, because of which certain economic sanctions have been imposed on the economy of Russia. But the US Department has granted exception to the Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline. This is being seen as something that is a constructive measure for better relationship between Russia, Western countries, Russia and European countries at specific. So Nord Stream 2 is the gas pipeline from Russia to Western European countries. Then apart from this, on the international news, nothing of real note. On the international news, so low confidence plus high fuel costs hurt demand. So this is exactly what is being said in the editorial also, that we have high fuel cost, we have incurred a lot of significant health cost, and all of this is hurting the economy at large. Then apart from this, on the economics page and the sporting news, nothing of real note for us in this regard. Decisions on when and where the IPL will take place, or whether India will be able to host the T20 World Cup this year, where it will host, all of that is to be decided by BCCI. Apart from this, on the other side, nothing of real note for us. So in today's newspaper, once again, most important news related to Maratha judgment. Then second, DD International. Third, 6 UNESCO World Heritage Sites. Alright, so 3 main important news for all of you to note down in today's newspaper. On that note, thank you so much. I will see you all tomorrow.